I'm Michael Lawson, and I'm an assistant professor in human development, and I teach 3 courses regularly: HDEV 300, which is social science research methods; HDEV 367, which is children, families, and educational policy; and HDEV 327, which is culture and context and development. And I got into human development and got into the helping fields based in large part on my personal biography. When I was 10 years old, I decided that I was going to play Little League Baseball. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and it just so happened that when I went to sign up for Little League Baseball, that if I lived literally on the other side of the street that I lived, I would have been in a Little League Baseball league that was comprised entirely of white kids. And instead, because I lived on the other side of the street, I was part of a Little League Baseball league that was in the international district, of which it is that I was the only white kid amongst teammates in an entire league of African Americans. And through that experience, I learned and came into contact with racism in ways that I would have never otherwise seen or witnessed. During the summertime, we go to the store to be able to get something to eat or drink, and I would be able to go into the store and to be able to get a soda and chips and whatever else without getting harassed. As soon as my African American friends would go into the store, they'd get kicked out because they were black. Had kids come over to my house. We were a middle-class family on the kind of the lower end of the middle-class scale, and all my buddies thought I was rich because I had an Atari and had one video game and had an alarm clock. So all of those experiences really opened my eyes to the importance of context and culture and development. And when I went to college, I found out that a great number of my teammates were actually already in jail or had already had contact with the correctional system. One of my best friends was killed in a gang-related incident in Seattle when he was 16 years old. And because of the fact that I grew up with those guys and I knew about them and I knew about their families and I knew about their educational capacities, that when I saw the different outcomes that they experienced versus the ones that I did, I knew that those different outcome trajectories were because of issues of race and class. And so as I decided, what am I going to do with my life, I decided that I wanted to pursue a line of work and a line of inquiry that would help me to not only better understand those dynamics, but to hopefully be in a position to be able to change them. So I went to Washington State University for my undergrad after being in another school in the Midwest for a year where I played soccer. And I majored in history with a particular emphasis on African American history. And then I took a couple years off and tried to become a rock star in Seattle, Washington. And when that didn't work out the way that I wanted to, then I went back to school, got my master's in family studies in the Department of Family Studies and Social Work at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. And as part of that work, worked in inner city schools in Cincinnati for a couple of years. Then I moved out to Sacramento, California with my wife, who's a professor in social work here at Binghamton, and worked in not-for-profit agencies for about close to 15 years. And then, after about 10 or 12 years, went back and got my PhD in education at the University of California, Davis. So it just happened to, be a stroke of fate that, we were trying to be able to figure out what our next steps were going to be, and we had an opportunity to be able to. My wife applied here on a minority faculty line here through the SUNY system and was hired in, and Dean Bronstein was able to find a faculty line for me in human development right at the time that I was finishing up my dissertation work, and so had an opportunity for both of us to be able to have academic jobs here, and so this is my 5th year here at Binghamton, and we love it. So social science research methods is a class. It's a tough class, but you're going to love it. We do a lot of stuff looking at quantitative methods and trying to be able to develop skills and competencies that are needed to be able to not only read a quantitative research article, but also to be able to actually do quantitative research. So we actually do a lot of data stuff in class, which is fun, no matter what anybody says. Culture and Context and Development is a class that starts off with a lot of the kind of ecological theory that a lot of you get in Professor Merriweather's HDEV 200 class. We go in and get a lot deeper into issues of social capital theory and theories of disadvantage and theories of social advantage, and that culminates in a wonderful paper that people love to write at the end of the semester. And then HDEV 367 is an interesting class. We start off by looking at educational policy making in the United States, pretty much over the last 50 years, before it is that we get into some of the more contemporary educational policies, Race to the Top, Common Core, and some of the challenges and limitations of those policies and opportunities to be able to create educational change. So that's also, I think, a good course, and hopefully I'll be teaching that in the spring of next year. So personal tidbits. Yeah, so I've got a kid who's a sophomore at Seton Catholic Central, plays sports, like to be able to spend time on the weekends watching him run around. We have 2 dogs, wonderful little fluff balls, Kiki and Whiskey, and enjoy them. And beyond that, as a professor, what you pretty much do is work, but assuming that someday soon I will achieve tenure, I will very much look forward to going back and doing some basement songwriting, and maybe even think about running a marathon. But we'll have to see about that.